Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Dave Albert. In this show, I talk about technology, building a company as a CTO and co-founder, and have guests to discuss their roles in technology and entrepreneurship. Today, I'm joined by Adam Coulon, co-founder and CTO of WiGo Trips. Thanks so much for joining us, Adam.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me too.
No, it's a pleasure. Can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and WiGo Trips, please?
Yeah, sure. So I think to understand more about me, kind of have to maybe get to know where I started from and my journey into technology. When I was in high school, I was pretty basically enthralled by this other woman in my class that spent some time in Russia. She lived in Russia for about a year and came back and could speak Russian conversationally. And just that ability that she gained after coming back really stuck with me. And I kind of made it a big goal of mine to do something kind of similar. Kind of fast forward a little bit, got into college. I was fascinated by aerospace engineering. So I chose that as kind of my first discipline. And in a lot of ways, I used that as a mechanism to start traveling around the world. I kind of realized that you could do different research projects at different universities. So I spent time in a couple other countries and really loved that kind of experience. Kind of fast forward again a little bit, I kind of was noticing how much technology in general was shaping the world in the future and just decided to kind of go all in with it at some point. And so about 5 years ago, I began working as a software developer, freelance. I dropped out of graduate school to pursue just software development in general. And after about a year of working as a freelancer, I landed a full-time position in Austin, Texas, at this really cool company called Townie that was building kind of a reward program for shopping local and banking local.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great. Good people. Worked at that for about 3 years, wrote the first line of code, did the majority of their system, worked on their mobile app, and basically I was just kind of like using the opportunity to get as good as I could with software development. I'd wake up, immediately start working, have a lunch break, work again, have a dinner break, gym break, then work again till like I passed out. And I kind of lived that regiment for about 3 years, working at Townie.
Wow.
And improved quite a bit during that time.
Well, good on you for sticking with the gym anyway. 'Cause that's one of the first things that fails myself.
It's something I've been trying to keep up with. There's a saying in Japanese actually that I really love. It goes, Kenzen naru tamashi wa kenzen naru seishin to kenzen naru nikutai ni adoru. And it basically means a healthy soul resides in a healthy mind and body. So I really like to, and just kind of living that, you really kind of see how, like why people really kept saying that phrase. It led to a really good life balance of keeping the mind healthy as well as the body.
Nice. I like that. I'm going to have to find, an image of that to keep it handy.
Nice.
Very interesting. So what is WiGo Trips?
So WiGo Trips is a community for group vacationers and people who like to host those and go on them. Essentially, it's a double-sided marketplace for group vacations, where once you're a member, you're able to define a trip, put up images, a description, define an itinerary for it, kind of talk about what's included, and come up with different room and lodging and booking options for people that might want to join it. And through our platform, you're able to, once you define that, list your vacation, and it's discoverable by other members who can choose to go on it or not.
Okay. So it's like the whole destination?
Yeah, it's the whole experience, the whole vacation itself. So it's kind of like a couple steps beyond Airbnb. So with Airbnb, you can just get accommodations, and then they kind of give you recommendations beyond that of what you can do in the area. What WiGo Trips is really the entire experience kind of packaged together.
That's really interesting. So it reminds me of how a number of a cruise would be basically everything kind of packaged together so that you don't have to do so much thinking, which can remove a lot of the stress of the actual travel.
Exactly. It's like when you book a vacation and you want to spend time doing a week or so of a lot of really fun things that you want to accomplish during it, you have to do a lot of independent bookings. You have to get transportation by itself. You have to get the hotels by itself. Each kind of excursion provider you have to talk to, and sometimes you'll have weeks between communications with them, depending on how remote they are. So it really kind of just packages all of that into a single shareable link that people can see all the information about a trip and make kind of like a single payment to cover it all.
That's really interesting. How long have you been operating?
So we have been live for about 3 months. At the end of January, we launched in the app stores. But Jackie has been working on the concept for about 2 years now. And I kind of came on as CTO last May. So yeah, relatively recently.
And so Jackie's your CEO?
Yes. So Jackie McCarthy is the original founder and CEO of the company. She used to work in Verizon and basically has just over time developed a really strong sense for kind of user behavior and user interaction within applications. She also has led group trips in the fashion industry pretty successfully and kind of wanted to kind of ultimately combine all that knowledge and expertise into just a fantastic platform that she completely came up with.
Nice. So how big is the tech team? Is it just you have some people working with you?
So right now it's just me. We've got a really strong relationship with the team in India that kind of as we get resources, we can scale them up or down. And they've been very flexible and deliver very good code. But the majority has been me. I've done all the system, a good chunk of the mobile app. For a brief period, I was actually hiring a really good friend of mine to do mobile app development. And I was paying him out of pocket. And he did very fantastic work that I've been very impressed with. But he has since chosen to pursue other endeavors. And so I've kind of continued where he left off.
Yeah. So what kind of what you're willing to share, what's your stack like? Your technology stack?
I love transparency. I love basically sharing information. So totally down to talk about this. We're using open source everything. We've got Postgres database, Node.js application layer for APIs, and then we're using React for web apps and React Native for mobile apps.
Have you had any difficulties with React or React Native, even more particularly React Native?
Yeah. So anyone that's worked with React Native knows that kind of like the general idea is there, like your apps will get out and work. It's great, but there's a lot of little gotchas along the way. And unless you have kind of like direct experience working with it, kind of each one is going to kind of snag you for a little bit. But yes, there are certain difficulties that are non-trivial that you come across and have to deal with. But overall, it is very functional.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time thinking about React Native. Decided not to go with it and go with actual native applications. Of course, that means that our iOS application, which we started with, is quite far along, and our Android is very immature at the moment. So we have a large amount of data and also quite a few other elements that I could just see were going to be an issue with React Native. And even though I have extensive JavaScript experience, my actual React Native was nothing beyond a few simple sample applications. And so it just didn't make sense.
It's something that that we chose to start with simply because I had a lot of prior experience with it. So a lot of those gotchas, I knew exactly what to do with them from the start. Plus, the friend that I was working with, he has a history of being a very good native mobile developer. So he could do iOS native and Android native, but he was looking to get more experience in the JavaScript world. So it was just a neat kind of like contract that had benefits for us both.
Yeah.
And that was really cool because kind of as needed, he could inject native screens just directly into the React Native framework.
Oh.
And just because of his prior experience and abilities.
Very neat. Yeah, that's one of the things about frameworks like that is that those with deep understanding of the framework have one skill set, but those with deep understanding of the underlying framework can actually have quite a leg up in some cases where often for me, the frameworks can feel like they've hamstrung me. And it's easier to do it natively than with the framework.
Oh yeah, 100%. They can do that. Even something as simple as kind of having a selector for your email client to choose how you want to open up an email, for example. React Native doesn't have a way to do that. You can tap into whatever they've chosen as a default, but I don't think they have the selector you can actually use. So in those cases, we had to create native little pop-up from the bottom.
I gotcha. So far, what has been your biggest challenge, other than getting more done faster, which is what we all try to do, but I don't know anyone who's actually accomplishing that in a way that they would like.
So yeah, that's a good question. So like in terms of just development, the WiGo application and platform isn't all that complex. It's essentially just a handful of ledgers that we're just keeping track of. There's not any big data studies in the back or anything like that. So kind of so long as you follow standard development practices and techniques, we ended up with a generally bug-free experience. The thing though is like, as soon as we started getting users on the platform, the direction of it kind of takes a mind of its own.
Yeah.
Because you have to start that balance of really providing things that they notice, that visually too sometimes, along with keep continuing to improve the fundamentals. And there are definitely times, especially in a young company, when you do have to push and take on tech debt just to kind of put something out that pleases everybody that's using it.
I gotcha. So do you have designers, UX people in that group that you use within India, or do you have some internally, or how are you managing that?
So Jackie is very much a jack of many skills. She basically whatever someone else couldn't do for her, she started to learn and take on herself. And through that discipline, she's become a very good designer. She wasn't a designer professionally to start, but I would say that definitely she's up there now. Jackie has provided all of the design, all of that kind of direction.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's pretty impressive.
How did you two get connected?
So I was actually looking around some online travel communities and came across her profile. And at the time, I was kind of feeling ambitious myself, just wanting to do my own project, my own platform kind of thing. And I noticed that she was the founder of WiGo Trips. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I kind of looked more into the company, read about her vision for it, and was immediately sold. I was like, this would be so many career goals for me at once to pursue. And so I just immediately got into kind of a business kind of conversation with her. We got into kind of talking about the structure of the business itself, all the way to like the next 5-10 years, like future vision of the entire thing. And yeah, I was just immediately sold from her work ethic, what she's tried to do, what she's put together, the research, and yeah, everything she's done to structure the business, kind of all the above.
That's really neat. So how do you guys have any current funding, or are you bootstrapped, or are you funded through, product?
So we are completely bootstrapped to this point, which is great. That's how my soul is. I like that, but it's not always feasible. It's kind of the thing.
I completely understand where we have some investment, but mostly it's been through consultancy work.
Cool.
And it's, you want to scale faster, and really the only thing that makes that happen is money. So
yeah, that's what it comes down to. I've invested a good amount of my personal funds, as Jackie has as well. We have completed the very small kind of friends and family, but it's not all that much. We are kind of preparing ourselves to seek a larger kind of seed round investment right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're making sure our data is recorded well enough and financials are in place. And I think we've pretty much got it all. We're just got to fine tune a couple things.
Yeah, there's always fine tuning, of course.
Yeah. And we have actually started to generate some initial revenue as well, which is
nice.
Exciting.
That's very good. So what are your typical customers at the moment? Who would they typically be?
So right now we're kind of focusing first on millennials. We are in a lot of different millennial travel groups and just general group travel groups. And we're reaching out and getting a lot of interest from that demographic. We're kind of entering a new-ish sharing economy in general across the world, where people are becoming more and more comfortable with sharing their information, sharing their experiences, and sharing their homes, sharing their cars, all sorts of things. And so kind of that younger demographic is really kind of latching onto this kind of group trip idea.
And what about the providers?
So yeah, that's interesting too. Kind of one of the problems with any kind of double-sided marketplace is that you have to kind of build up the demand and supply at the same time. It's a little bit tricky. So what we've done is we've launched with what we call an ambassador program, where we started out with about 600 applicants to be WiGo travel ambassadors. Down selected that to 30, and I've kind of worked with those top 30. And what we do is, we basically we hire them as contractors, and we work with them to define a trip. As a company, we then sponsor the complete cost of the trip that we define with them, and we kind of price it such that they're able to make a profit, and we can make a small profit as a company, but it's pretty close to kind of at cost right now. And the travel ambassador will take home 20% of the gross proceeds from that.
How do you find those ambassadors? You said you had 600? Was that what you said? 600 applicants?
Yeah. So this is another kind of example of some Jackie magic. We posted just general job applications across job forums across the internet, basically asking if anyone was interested to make money while traveling. And so with that simple message, we got a lot of responses actually. And from then it was really just for a few months, Jackie did nothing but just schedule interviews back to back all day with each person that applied, just to get a sense of who they were, how they've traveled in the past, and if she believed they'd be successful as WiGo ambassadors, and just put in the hard work and diligence to find a very good crew.
I hear you. How do you find, or how are you reaching the millennials that you mentioned?
So right now we haven't spent basically any money in marketing and acquisition. We've set up kind of a referral network, and we're going to see how that spreads. And so right now it's really a lot of our ambassadors are tasked with bringing people into the app. They're kind of serving as salespeople for their trips. And so that has attracted a lot of interest. And on top of that, we reach out to different travel communities. We're very active on social media. So we've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook pages, and we're posting on those pretty regularly every day.
Yeah, it seems like this is a really good Instagram market.
Oh, yeah. And once again, Jackie has talent there. She can coordinate the images, do all the great things.
Yeah, no, it's travel is an easy one easy, the air quote easy, as easy as anything.
No, totally get it. Yeah.
But trying to reach doctors, as we are on Instagram, is a little harder. The medical students are a bit easier, but still, it's not the same. People love Instagram for travel, so I can see a lot of opportunity there for you guys.
Yeah. And it's kind of like we're starting with millennials because they're some of the easiest to attract with our limited resources and our expertise. Kind of as we grow, we're going to reach into bigger markets and start marketing toward larger demographics.
Yeah, no, I if I ever take a holiday again, I could see it being a nice way to do it.
Yeah. We actually talked to a woman that was 65, living single, and had just had a problem. She was like, I would love to go on vacations, but I just don't know how to get started with them and how to meet people and basically have a good time without having done it 3 times to make mistakes in the past. And she was in love with the concept of WiGo trips.
How do you manage the work with the remote staff or the remote freelancers, I suppose?
Yeah, so it's kind of a very kind of organic, kind of custom relationship. Kind of something I've realized just with tech in general is that there seems like there might be a standard way to accomplish something, but in reality, it's very much up to the team to do it as they can. And so what we've got going with their team in India is I'm having them do a lot of kind of static work. We haven't had too much resources to devote to them. So I've had them do a couple static websites. And then what I'll do is kind of take those and kind of put them into a React app and kind of hook them up to data and data binding and all sorts of controls to those.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we use them as efficiently as possible. So for them to create like a static HTML page with HTML, CSS, JavaScript is very easy. They've got templates, modules to do that. And then they'll just hand it off pretty quick. And then I'll use my expertise and knowledge of the system to just kind of place them exactly where they're going to be most effective.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Thank you.
That is really good. Which is much harder to do with actual native applications.
Yeah. And part of it is like you really want to decrease the complexity of what kind of people kind of a little bit outside the company are working on, just simply because they're not fully engaged in you. They're doing a lot of other things outside. And so if you can kind of simplify what they have to think about and kind of leave the complicated stuff for internal with the experts, it kind of makes overall a pretty efficient process.
What's the kind of the biggest element of what you're trying to solve right now? To any specific feature set or?
So I guess kind of from a technical standpoint, we are focusing right now pretty heavily on real-time chat. It's just there's a lot of components to it to coordinate to kind of get the experience that people expect nowadays. Originally, you could get by with simply just relaying a message and having a timestamp and saying who it's from. But now there's a lot of expectations. You have to be able to share all sorts of files, all sorts of images, have link previews. You have to tell people when someone's typing, when someone's looked at it. And so you have to kind of like take into account all this metadata and additional data and features that people, just would like in a chat system these days. So that's our current technical focus for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're working on our groups feature, which is kind of chat, kind of forum. It's where the doctors or other healthcare providers can discuss different medical content. So it's got a lot of those same types of elements. What are you going to use for those types? Like the identifier when someone's typing. Do you know what kind of technology, underlying communication technology you're planning to use?
Yeah. So we kind of started out using Firebase messaging. which was kind of our first choice. But it was kind of like inconvenient to use that in conjunction with your own authentication system, which I had already created. They kind of like you to tie into Google's Auth. So I looked into Twilio as a chat solution. It's newer, but has all the bells and whistles, which is great. And they kind of do a la carte pricing, which works for us. And they make it very easy to tap into your own authentication system. So I've actually been, running with Twilio, which I've liked quite a bit.
Nice. I'll have to look into that. We're dealing most of ours through the push notifications through either the APN or the Firebase cloud.
Okay.
Well, we're just now in the process of the Firebase because of Android, but long term, I had considered something like MQTT. It's very lightweight, so it uses very little battery.
Nice.
Which is what Facebook Messenger uses. So that's the protocol. I'm considering that, but always willing to consider something that can help us move faster. With
that sounds like it'd be yeah. The more convenience you add, the faster you can move, but then the more you pay, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Do you have sights on your next, hires, next staff you might have, or is it still driving towards what you have now?
So we're kind of going to continue with what we've got. With the two of us, we're able to make steady progress.
That's fantastic.
But certainly, as soon as we get investment, we're going to expand the team a little bit. And it's kind of it's a interesting thing to coordinate and think about. There's different approaches definitely you could take when doing such a thing. My ideal would be to have kind of in-house leads for certain things, like parts of the system have system leads, data analytic lead, mobile lead, that sort of thing, and have like a integration engineer that kind of runs and does DevOps and sysadmin kind of work. But then kind of maybe do more of the outsourced kind of trivial tasks, outsource those to external teams. And kind of internally, we focus more on kind of management, architecture, and integration. And have external teams focus more on like the, just all the dev tasks kind of underneath all that.
It's interesting.
But that's just kind of my thoughts on things.
Yeah. You never know how it's going to go. And, you do need to remember that anytime there are multiple points of communication, there are multiple points for communication failures.
Yes. Keep things simple. That is huge truth in a lot of things. And in following that, I like, as much as possible, I'd rather spend a little bit extra to hire a developer that's that much better. Because when you're just starting out with some stuff, if you can hire the best talent, that's going to go a long ways when setting up your foundation.
Definitely.
So that's kind of the direction I tend to push things.
How in depth have you gone? As you mentioned data analytics earlier, how in depth have you gone in the analytics arena? Are you using any specific tools or custom built, or what sort of analytics are you tracking?
So we've started building kind of an analytics foundation using Google Analytics. Which is pretty nice. We can just kind of attach that to all of our websites, our web apps pretty easily. And they even offer a little SDK you can include within the mobile app where you can basically record any event and associate that with any user. So from just what Google Analytics offers, we're able to do full web tracking, page views, as well as look at specifically like how long somebody is looking at particular trips, like how long they appear on the screen, kind of like where they've clicked and where they've stopped clicking, for example. If they register, fill out the profile, look at the list of trips, click on one, but maybe they never joined one. Then we can kind of gain that insight and look at maybe like why they aren't joining a particular trip. Like maybe we should offer different kinds of trips.
I guess that is another benefit you get from React Native, is it? Because when I was starting the build of Medit, they were discouraging the use of Google Analytics for mobile because they wanted you to use Firebase, and Firebase didn't have anywhere near the feature set that Google Analytics had in the past.
Yeah, a lot of these service providers, they get you with their core service, but then they try to link you into the other stuff they do in the peripheral.
Yeah, well, that's I built an app 5 years ago or more, and we used Google Analytics, and it was perfect, for a native application. And then when I was starting with Medit, use Firebase Analytics, and it was like it was such an immature product at that time that it just didn't work for us. So I'm always curious what other people are using. So that's great that you're able to use Google Analytics.
Yeah, just the simple events do what we need. I've used Mixpanel in the past, and I've liked them a lot too. I think Mixpanel does have better reporting abilities. You can kind of generate reports with the dimensions you want a little bit easier. Google Analytics is a little kind of tricky to get the look on the data that you want. But once you get that, it's okay. And we're not doing any complex data studies either.
Yeah. We tried using Mixpanel, and it was a nice product. And if we'd only had simple queries, it would have worked. But we had a number of quite complex queries that we needed answered. And so I was going to have to build the queries anyway. So it didn't make sense to keep using that. And
I see.
Try to insert custom code into Mixpanel. I mean, it supports that, but it didn't suit us. It was easier to write it by hand, write it from scratch.
Yeah, totally understand.
What areas concern you the most about being a CTO and co-founder?
I think the area that I'm kind of most conscious of is kind of just communication in general. As if you're just a pure developer, you've got your expertise. You come in, you basically tell the computer what to do, hopefully it does it, and you're good. You don't really need to think too much beyond that, which is very nice. But kind of when you get into positions of leadership, you then gain the responsibility of having to communicate outwardly to other people involved, just kind of what's going on. Because to most people that don't do tech themselves, like have deep expertise in it, it's magic. It's invisible. They have to just trust that the person that did do it did the right thing. And so that's just a huge thing that you have to remain conscious of as any kind of technical leader. And as CTO, you're at the very tip of that. So by stakeholders, you've got your entire user base as stakeholders. So it's more than just a manager next to you or something like that. You really have to think pretty deep on a lot of philosophies.
How do you get your information from the ultimate customers of what to work on next?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So we have regular ambassador meetings with all of our ambassadors. They're kind of what we're considering our early adopters, like the people that are really diehard. They're putting in their own time, their own effort to really make this platform as good as it can be. And so we meet with them right now once a week, but I think we're going to do maybe once every 2 weeks, and just hold a conference with everybody and get their feedback. We do weekly polls to see just kind of what they would like to see worked on next. And so long as we don't have like a immediately pressing kind of other task going on that we need to do, we basically just follow their direction, which works pretty well.
Are there any specific tools that you use for, say, tracking that, or anything else that you couldn't live without?
So I personally like Asana a lot for kind of general department organization. Once we become bigger and we do a lot more like interdepartmental work. That's when like Jira starts to really shine.
Yeah.
It's got some overhead to set up, but it works well for interdepartment relationships and things like that. Kind of just getting started though, we really just used GitLab for most things. The issue tracking, they've got a Kanban board you can put issues on, and so we just kind of use that. Every bug, every little piece of feedback, we just make a ticket for.
Yeah, that's what we started with Trello, and then once we outgrew that, we went down a big hole of trying a number of different things, multiple Trello boards. We tried product board with Trello, and then eventually went to Jira. I wish that as soon as we outgrew Trello, I'd have gone straight to Jira, but my experience with Jira had been in a very large corporate environment and was not a great experience, but so far it's been pretty good for us. I mean, we've only moved 2.5 months ago or so. But we've got eight people. Well, 9 now, I guess. So it's a little harder to try to roadmap with all those moving pieces. And Trello definitely was not suited for it with at least the mix of staff we had. Maybe if we'd had someone to kind of manage that project management style or product owner style, that would have helped. But so I just would recommend anybody, as soon as you outgrow whatever you're using, just go ahead and go to Jira. There's a reason everybody uses it. It may not
it works,
but it's the best solution that is out there, I suppose.
I agree. I'm on the same page as that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had to kind of suffer through a poorly set up instance of Jira in the past. Oh, that can be a pain. That makes you not want to use it, but no. Spend the time, set it up correctly, and it'll take care of what you need it to.
Well, and that's the other thing now. So the enterprise environment that we were in, it was a self-hosted, and now with cloud, it's just a tenner for up to 10 people. So that's a lot of overhead removed from your plate. So that's this episode is not sponsored by Jira.
It's true. Well, no, I love Jira. I love Atlassian too.
That's how, we use Confluence as well and Bitbucket. So, I mean, I do use, well, and Trello is another one of their tools. So I use a lot of them, but I wouldn't consider myself a fan necessarily. They seem to work. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. It's maybe 5 years from now, there'll be a whole another set of tools that we just will use in our profession.
Of course, there always are. So is your infrastructure set up in AWS? Is that what you said?
Oh, actually, Google Cloud.
Oh, Google. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I've really enjoyed them. I actually haven't had much experience in AWS. And so kind of as I got started learning hosting skills, I guess, I just kind of started with Google. I was initially really kind of intrigued by the infrastructure as code kind of idea. Mm-hmm. I was looking at solutions like Terraform by HashiCorp.
Yep.
Where, and that just was pretty compelling to me. So I used some of those and made some I was able to spin up Google Cloud machines with those. I thought was pretty neat. So I just kind of got familiar with it and kind of ran with it from there.
Is your Postgres, is it host based, or is it a service offered by Google Cloud?
Yeah, we're also using Google for Postgres services.
But I mean, are you managing the host, or is it like in AWS? There's RDS for the SQL style hosts. So do you have to, manage patching of that Postgres server, or is it just Postgres as a service? Is what I was.
It's really just Postgres as a service. You tell it what you want, kind of the parameters around it, and then it's it gives you an IP and how to access it.
Ah, nice.
And so then it's up to you to do migrations and make sure that you set up data backups and archiving.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's the bane of our existence.
Yeah.
Is data. I mean, all,
yeah.
Kubernetes. So all of our services are, basically ephemeral, and it doesn't matter if one goes down, another one comes up. But
Nice.
when
Oh, I think it cut out for just a second.
Oh.
I think it's back.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So your data is forever. That's
Yeah. Data is so important. Well, every time I open the database, I'm like making sure that everything is good, that there's backups, I'm in a transaction, everything, all the above.
Yeah. What of interest haven't I thought to ask you about WiGo trips or yourself?
Let's see. So, I mean, a huge reason that I am so passionate about working on this platform is that I've just traveling the world in general is a huge hobby of mine. I love going to a different country, just jumping into the culture, like learning the languages and meeting all the people. And so for me, it's more so than just my software development career. It's really just, it's pursuing my hobbies, my passions, kind of, and my career. Like, so hopefully once this all goes well, I'll have access to just a lot of vacations that will be just tons of fun to go on. So I guess, do you have any particularly like types of vacations you like? Any parts of the world that you'd like to see, kind of thing?
Well, I've got 3 small kids, so I'm not going anywhere for a while. But if you happen to come to Dublin, I'll buy you a pint.
Oh, awesome. I love Dublin. I was there for my sister's wedding. It was a good time.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I'm from a small town in West Virginia, and I was basically so happy to be somewhere like Dublin that for 3 years, for 3 years, we only went to like 2 small trips away from Dublin. And then we did go to Rome for a week, but I was basically trying to find every pub in Dublin, and there are a lot here.
There's a ton.
Then we had kids, and I just work now.
Nice.
My adventures are confined to the podcast.
That's cool. The neat thing about WiGo is even if it enables people to like attract others to their town where they live. So if there's cool stuff around Dublin that you'd love to show off at some point, WiGo can definitely enable that kind of thing too.
That's interesting. Now, there are a couple of places back home that would not be a typical destination, but have some interesting bits about them. So if it were part of a larger tour from a package, that might be compelling. So.
Yeah, it's something that like, I was born and raised in Kansas, and I've got some friends in Kansas that, that know all sorts of little cool hidden spots kind of just outside the cities and stuff that you'd never ever see in any kind of tourist guide or anything, but just simply because they've grown up in the area, they just know stuff that would be actually pretty cool if someone else was coming in.
What do you wish you'd known before you started on WiGo trip? Started with WiGo trips.
That's a good question. Let's see. What would I wish I knew before getting started? So the one thing is every project you do, especially those from scratch, will just in general always be more difficult than your expectations. So that classic thing. Like, we were originally planning to launch an MVP last year in 2018, and we kind of had parts of it, but it wasn't quite ready. And then other things happened. And it would be very convenient to have an understanding of the total stamina required, but I'm not sure that that's possible.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, that in the best way possible, but it is ridiculous how hard this is and how much is involved, and what seems like a small thing is not. That's it. We've got what's becoming a mantra that there are no small changes.
None at all. It's so true. And really one of the most important things is to just not give up.
Yeah.
Like, always communicate the best you can, know that everyone's going to have bad days, and just keep at it.
Yeah. That's let's just move this button. Well, what about the other thing beside it? And then this bit. And then if we go to this other screen, then that's a change. And then what you think is just a 5-minute fix is a week's worth of work.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's kind of our responsibility to communicate that. Like, even though it's a pain to even just explain that it's a lot of work, like just to someone that doesn't believe that right quite yet. Like, you do have to explain it. And even though they might not want to hear it, it's just, I've kind of kept that as a personal standard.
Yeah. Well, one way I've been able to sort of help explain some of those changes is, imagine you just want to stick an image in a Microsoft Word document. What's going to happen? It might go fine, or it might reformat your whole document.
All the days of Microsoft Word writing reports, research papers, and then that started the whole motivation for learning LaTeX. The whole thing. Yeah. There's tons.
Yeah. So is there anything else that we haven't talked about that would be good to bring up for people who are beginning their journey as a founder or in the process?
I guess always work on your patience, always work on your communication, always work on your stamina. Always humble yourself. Something I've realized is that with software development, like, we're just humans and we're working with computers, which are very optimal things. Yeah. Even the best humans are going to make mistakes. So the best thing you can do is just maximize your ability to learn from any mistake. Face them, always do. But also, if someone says something better, consider it. Like, the more you can leave your pride at the door, and the more you can think of all conversation and all decisions objectively, that's when you really get answers that you can defend forever.
Very good stuff. So some great quotes from you.
I appreciate it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd also, I would love to learn more about kind of your history and how you got started, the whole progression of your company as well.
Sure.
If there's any time.
Yeah. I've been in IT and software development for, I guess it's 23 years now. God, how is that possible? Just 21 years. Just 21 years. Oh my God, I'm getting old. Anyway, I moved over here to Dublin from the States to work in a hospital, and then I went to a marketing agency as a lead developer there, where I actually met my CEO, Julie. She and I worked together there for a little while, and then she went away to be the head of digital marketing for a global pharmaceutical company. Then we kept in touch, and then decided, okay, let's go back and do something together. And so we started 115, which is the company, with the goal of doing some consultancy. And then when we figured out what the right product was, work on that. And that's what we did. And we've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. The product came out. We did not celebrate our year since launch. It was this month, a year ago.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Thank you. But still nowhere near happy with, well, that's the wrong phrasing. Wish it was further along. Extremely happy with what we have. Just wish there was more of it.
I totally understand. I'm same boat with me.
Yeah, it's a quite complex application. It's, we have over 5,000 sources of medical content, and we scrape all of that data, use machine learning and peer-to-peer recommendations to deliver the right content to healthcare providers based on their preferences and behaviors. We have over 9 million unique pieces of content, which we link directly to the source material. We're, in the process of building out our groups feature, which will allow the discussions around content we have or content that a user may find, links, images, video, what have you. We have, sorry, what was that?
That's awesome. That's quite a system. A lot of data to manage.
It is. It's going pretty well. Like I said, your data is forever, hopefully. So I spend a good deal of time trying to make sure that all of our data is in a robust platform, that we have plenty of availability. We use Kubernetes to make sure that we don't have to worry about should a pod go down, because it will just spin up a new one.
Oh, yeah, I love Kubernetes.
Yeah, definitely. For us, I think one of the things that is our biggest issue, or at least from my perspective, is understanding timings and figuring out how we can make more work go through our system with the least amount of waste. So, when you've got a system where it's one person, you can only do what you can do, but the waste can be minimized because of that, the not needing the different layers of communication.
Yeah.
Right now you've got, just to simplify, you've got the design that comes from your CEO, and then you develop it, or you send off those pieces to your freelancers to develop and then hook them up. But when you have so much work that and the staff to handle it, and you have to have communications between the product owner, in air quotes, which would be our CEO, Julie, who's also doing all the consulting, communicating that to our designer, UX expert. He then designs the correct user interface based on our knowledge and understanding. And then we begin to start to develop that. There are so many touch points that rework can become quite an issue. So eliminating all those things with the right processes are one of the things that I found to be the hardest to keep improving without spending an inordinate amount of time on, if that makes sense.
No, it does completely. Anytime you can do regular process improvement meetings will be very helpful. Because, the more layers of communication you get, just the larger the game of telephone you're playing is.
But one of the things that we did, which was the most important thing, I think, for speeding up our development process, was our automation pipeline. So when we do a merge into a master branch for the API, it uses Bitbucket pipelines and automatically pushes to the container registry, and then it sends off a webhook to our bot, which then triggers a deployment to testing and automatically runs Postman tests, and then gives us the results in Slack, and we can just tell our Slack bot, ship to prod when we're ready. And roll back just as easily. So we can be just, 2 commands and maybe 4 minutes from committing code till it's in production, should we need it to be.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So that
does sound like it helped a ton.
It does. And we also have our iOS application, so that as soon as it is merged into master, it automatically ships to test flight. So
nice. I should set that up too.
Yeah. It was a little bit of an investment in time. I mean, it wouldn't take you more than a day, but the amount of time that it saves is unbelievable. So we had, a critical issue one day, and had we not had that automation pipeline, we probably would have had that critical issue for, I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe more. But because of the way it was set up, it was fixed in production 10 minutes after we knew about it. So,
and that's like with full trust too. Like, you did the fix, ran through the automated testing, and they're like, okay, yeah, this is going to work. It's not like, oh, I hope this works. Cross my fingers. Oh my gosh,
Exactly. Now, of course, I would be happy to have even more test coverage, but it's solid, but it could be better, which I've never seen anywhere where it could be better.
Exactly. It's one of those things. So you can never have too much security like that. And I've discussed this topic with a couple other CTOs that I've met, and just kind of like asking them like what they do to prepare efficiently for larger dev teams. And some of the common things that they've told me are get a kind of component library and kind of like a design library, basically.
Yeah.
With like and just those two things and API documentation. Basically get like some solid fundamental tools for developers to kind of intuitively start building, kind of in a sense.
Yeah, that's we've got pretty much everything in Figma for design. And everything built as components. So the design side is in a very good state. Our API, our analytics API, our iOS app, and our Android app are all separate. You wouldn't really call them mono repos, but they're not really component based, though there are some things I would like to get down to a component base later. And our API documentation definitely needs some love. It's already set up. It's just the extraction process that needs updated.
I hear you. Yeah. And native is tricky because each one can be very different from each other. It's kind of hard to make common components.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's pretty good for me.
Cool.
Always a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So do you have any call to action to our listeners?
Call to action. Yes, I would say always do your best to improve communication, whether it be technical, whether it be with your family, your friends, colleagues. Everyone on this planet has a different perspective, and no one's perspective is naturally wrong and correct. It's just we all have different perspectives. And so the more that we can understand each other and work with that understanding, I think overall the better things will be.
Fantastic. And how can people reach you?
So you can reach me by email. I'm adam@wigotrips.com. I'm also pretty active on Slack, Twitter as well. But yeah, I'd probably say email is the easiest at this point.
Okay. I'll throw that in the show notes. And thank you so much for joining us. It was very informative and interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you again for having me.
My pleasure. And thank you all for listening. Until next time, remember, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.